So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for being here today, and welcome to today's meeting of the Children and Families Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being broadcast live via the County Council's website and will remain available for viewing after the meeting. Members and officers are reminded that public meetings may be filmed, recorded, photographed, or reported on. Please take responsible steps to protect information visible on your devices, including closing unnecessary emails, messages, and documents, disabling message previews where appropriate, and positioning screens to reduce the risk of confidential, exempt, personal, or sensitive information being visible or captured. That's a lot of words. That's a new one. This is not intended to prevent lawful filming, recording, or reporting of public meetings. It is intended to ensure that the right to report proceedings is exercised responsibly and does not result in a deliberate or avoidable capture of confidential, exempt, personal, or sensitive information from members' or officers' devices. I've received, that was good. I have received apologies from Mr. Piper, Mrs. Taylor, and Mr. Page, with Mrs. Page subbing for Mrs. Taylor. Is there anyone else? Any other apologies? I didn't know.
We haven't received apologies from her, but if she's not here, I can note it down.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that one. Before we begin, please can I remind everyone to turn on their microphones when you wish to and have been invited to speak. So we're going to move on now to the agenda and move on to item 1. They're the minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of June 2026. I move that these minutes are taken as read, confirmed and signed. Is that agreed? Thank you. Number 2, question time. I haven't received any questions today from the public. And also item 3, members' questions. I haven't received any questions from members either. Item number 4 is urgent items, and there are no urgent items. Item number 5 is declarations of interest in respect to items on the agenda. Do any members have any interest they wish to declare? Thank you. And item number 6, declarations of the party whip. Do any members wish to declare the party whip? Thank you very much. Item number 7, presentation of petitions under Standing Order 33. I haven't received any petitions today. So move on to the substantive agenda, and that is item number 8, Children and Family Services Departmental Plan 26 to 29 progress. And this can be found on pages 17 to 24. Sharon Cook, Interim Director of Children and Family Services, and Mala Razak, Children and Families Partnership Manager. Okay, no worries. Thank you very much. So Sharon, I think you're going to do this one. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks, Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. Before you is a report that the purpose of the report of which is to update you on the progress of the department against our Children and Families Service Plan for 26-29. And hopefully members will remember that we came to the committee to have that draft report and plan agreed earlier in the year. And the request at that meeting was that we return to the committee 6 months into the plan to provide the committee with an update on how we are monitoring and reviewing the progress against the actions and ambitions within that plan, and any successes or indeed any issues that we've encountered as a department. So the report before you on page paragraph 2 to 6 outlines that policy framework that I've just described, and is clear that our departmental plan is aligned to the County Council strategic plan for 22 to 26, and sets out how the department will measure progress against agreed ambitions, visions and priorities. So paragraph 7 on the report outlines that the plan sets out a refreshed vision, priorities and ambitions for the services. It provides a strategic framework for service delivery and sets out our ambitions and priorities to contribute towards improving the outcomes for children and their families in Leicestershire. The report is based on key areas. So ambitions are that we will support children and young people to build strong foundations, that we will support children and young people to be safe and belong, and that we will support children and young people to enjoy and achieve. And all our priorities, our work, our plans are based around those key priorities and achievements against those areas. So paragraph 8 of the report describes for you how we measure the progress of the plan against our ambitions and targets. So within each of our services, each year, each service develops a service delivery plan that outlines how that department will and that part of the service will perform and measure their performance to help achieve our ambitions and our targets contained within our children and families departmental plan. That plan and those plans are then monitored against performance reports. So throughout the year, we receive ongoing performance reports and quality assurance reports that inform every part of the service up to directorate level of the performance and achievements of that part of the service. And that helps us ensure that as a senior management team, we know that we have the service addressing the key areas that we need it to address. We know where we are succeeding and how we build upon that success. And we would also know if there were any blocks or any potential difficulties that we needed to address, and we could address them at an early time. So paragraph 11 of the report gives you some evidence of positive impact, focusing on the early targeted family help and social care part of the service in the first instance. And paragraph 11 gives you some examples of how we've achieved we've achieved success in having more families worked with at that targeted family help level, which means that families are being helped and supported to build that resilience and not escalating into other service areas. We've seen a reduction in the escalation of children in need plans, going on to need more targeted intervention. We've seen an improvement in the reunification outcomes for children in care who are able to return to a family member. And we've got continued strength in placement stability, so children who are in our care can build those safe and stable relationships. We've also looked at noted some workforce stability, which is within an environment and a context that in certain areas of fields of work, there is a national shortage of certain fields, and we struggle to recruit to all the posts. So social workers is one of those posts. But we have seen over the period of time that we've reduced our vacancy levels in that area. Our agency usage has probably more stabilised than decreased. And we have reduce the turnover of staff. And what we do find is that when social work staff move, they move within the authority, so we retain them within the service. But there are certain areas of the service where we do need and continue to do more focused work to retain staff. So paragraph 12 onwards talks about the continuous improvement plan, our achieving excellence via purposeful practice, and the self-evaluation framework that we complete on an annual basis that is shared with Ofsted, and shared this year with Ofsted in our annual conversation, where we receive very positive feedback on the progress that the department is making. Paragraph 14 highlights for the committee some of the other annual reports that are part of our performance monitoring and part of our monitoring of against our departmental plan. And these reports all come to the committee at various times. So the annual report on safeguarding is before committee today. The independent reviewing officer's annual report again is on the agenda today. We bring a report on the adoption agency and fostering agency, and the complaints and compliments annual report is also before the committee later on the agenda. So they're all key yearly reports that help us look at the progress we're making against our plan. And then paragraph 15 onwards takes the committee through the education, inclusion and additional needs part of the department. So again, it outlines similarly the use of service delivery plans, the performance reporting that is made against this part of the service. References for the committee are belonging in education strategy, which is helping build that resilience and those strong relationships for children within their school settings. And paragraph 17 onwards outlines, as the committee knows, that we bring periodically to overview and scrutiny examples progress against the report. So paragraph 18 provides examples within the education, inclusion and additional needs of where progress has been made. So our waiting lists for inclusion and attendance services have reduced despite the increased demand upon those services, meaning that children are seen more quickly and are receiving earlier report to assess and attend mainstream provision for their education. We have continued to track below the national average for permanent exclusions for children at both primary and secondary school age. And the average time to complete a needs assessment and finalise an education, health and care plan is currently at 18.7 weeks. So the national target for that is 20 weeks. So there has been phenomenal progress in that part of the service. So the report in total, I hope, gives some overview and reassurance to the committee on how we both set out our priorities and how we're going to achieve our priorities against the departmental plan and how that's monitored throughout the year. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
No, thank you very much indeed. Mr. Pugsley, would you like to comment?
Thank you very much, Chairman. There's not too much to add on this item. I think obviously as we've gone through, it sets out the department's strategic priorities and their ambitions, both for children, young people and families. But I think the bits that I will pull out is obviously the report highlights how progress is being monitored, and obviously that's through established governance, performance, those kind of areas. But the thing that I will pull attention to, which is quite interesting, is the report actually contains examples, proven examples, of where activities already being used to strengthen services. And I think from my point of view, that's the area that's really interesting to see, is sort of demonstrated improvements within the department. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yes, Ms. Penderbury.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things. Do bear with me a second, I need to get back to the right page. Priorities, you are, one of your 9 priorities, you're talking about giving, working in partnership to offer support and opportunity to children in their own communities. Given the priority is to support children in their own communities, are we looking at reducing supporting within specialist nurseries and schools, or is that, what is that? I do have one other thing as well. Shall I do that one as well? Yeah, you answered one of my questions in the original, but further down you talk about enabling children to grow up with a sense of belonging with at least one adult who provides unconditional care and love. I love that statement. I think that's absolutely wonderful. But I'd love to know how you assess that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'll start with the last one. So our assessment of belonging for children and attachments for children runs right the way through all our work of how we assess those family relationships and the importance of who are the most significant people in a child's life. For most children, those significant relationships are their immediate family, parents, grandparents, and our work is very much based on how we support families through when they're going through what may be a difficult time, to maintain and build upon those relationships. So all our work around Best Start in Life, family hubs, right through our targeted family help services, into social care, all our assessment and the focus of our work is on that. For those children who need to be in our care for a period of time, and can't live with a family member, there are two things that we do around that area of work. One is that we look to establish a home where they can be cared for and feel safe, and whether that is a foster home or whether that's a residential home, that's our focus. Our ambition is as many of our children in care get to live in a family-based setting. So we will work with them on that consistency of care, and for those children to feel that they belong, whilst at the same time making sure that we build upon and don't break those significant relationships with family, because although some children can't live with their family for a period of time, our ambition and our knowledge and the evidence about where children want to be and where they go to when they're older and they leave care is they want to go back home. So we don't want to damage those relationships. We want to maintain them at the very least, and we want to build on them so that if at a time a child can return home, they do that. So that's how we are developing and looking at those ambitions. We're working with our carers, we're working with those people who provide that alternative care for children, whether that be for a short period of time or a longer period of time, to ensure that permanence. And that would then go through to those smaller number of children where actually adoption is the outcome and the best outcome for them. And again, we're working with prospective adopters, carers, to understand that the strength of that relationship base and attachment for our children. In relation to belonging in education, because that is still part of that work, it's about an understanding that children build their networks and relationships from a very young age with those people within their community that they see every day, that they are out playing with, their friendships and other people within that community and within their schools. So and school is a really important part of any child's life. So our work and our belonging in education strategy is about building that belonging with that school environment where those children can be supported to be with their friends, with their peers, and get out of school not only the academic learning that takes place in school, but all the other richness that comes from being in a school environment.
Can I clarify that? Forgive me. So the unconditional positive regard, use something else. Unconditional positive love is quantified by the child's own concept of where they feel they belong, as well as the school. Is it a quantifiable thing? Is where I'm struggling slightly.
Yeah, I think perhaps that the two, because the essence of everything that I've described is about the entirety of that child's positive relationships with their family, with their home, and school is part of it. That unconditional love comes from that family setting. But this is about, we know that children do better in their school environments where those things, and they've got the strength of those relationships. Yeah. I think the other question was about priorities around schools.
Yeah, work in partnership to offer and support opportunities for children to in their own communities. Is this having an impact on children whose specialist educational needs require that they need to go to specialised services rather than remain in schools with some specialist knowledge?
Each child is assessed on their individual from an education point of view. So if schools would assess most children all the time around their learning, if a child's needs are that a school believes a child needs something additional to the package of support that they're providing, they will work with the local authority to look at how that support can be put in place. And as we all know, for some children where those needs are escalated, a consideration is given as to whether an education, health and care plan is needed for that child. The onus of our work and the onus of the evidence-based and the SEN reforms that we're all looking at how we work within and implement are based upon that most children can receive the best education if they need additional support, by that additional support being wrapped around them within their school, and that schools are the best place to, local schools are the best place to provide that support. So what we are ambitious about is that if a child's needs cannot be met within those resources and they do need a specialist provision, of course we will look at that specialist provision and we work with and provide some specialist provision. But our ambition is that for most children that is not needed. The specialisms can be provided and wrapped around them within schools.
One final, I promise. So does that mean there are fewer children going to the specialist schools, or the ambition is to reduce the number going to the specialist schools? Is that how I'm reading it? Because you feel the provision can be better provided within the schools in their communities?
The ambition of the government and everybody and specialists in education, the ambition is to provide that level of support for children at that level of their school and in their community. It doesn't mean that if there won't be any specialist provision, and it doesn't mean that there won't be some children that require that specialist provision. And our ambition is not to prevent, our ambition is to work and put the resources in for children at the earliest stage, because we know for most children that preventative stage helps them succeed and have better outcomes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Page.
Thank you very much for the report, and with the additional question raised by Councillor Penbury, I think it gave me quite a lot of insight, so thank you very much. It just leaves me with a very basic question, page 19, paragraph 10. Key performance indicators are monitored through a structured reporting process. Now, for me, key indicators are extremely important because it's easy to go down there. If something's red, I will say, how are you addressing that? So can you just talk me through the process? Does it actually come here to this committee where they go through the indicators and see where we're at? Have you got any red indicators at the moment? And how does it's reviewed at a monthly cycle to service level through improvement cycle meetings. So how does a team address something if it's been flagged up as amber? Are there learning structures in there? And thank you very much for this, very interesting.
Thank you. So we set as a department performance indicators each year, and many of those indicators are set for us because the government expects us to report on them. Some others will be indicators that when we've looked and worked with our colleagues in the region, there are areas we want to focus on. So we set those indicators, we set our targets against those indicators of where we want to perform, and we measure and set those targets against outstanding authorities. We then each month will have a process of how those indicators are reported on. So the access to our systems to get that reporting on a day-to-day basis. So a team manager, even a worker, would be on our system looking at their performance against individual workers and individual indicators on a daily basis. Those reports then have the oversight of a service manager who again is all over that performance at that regularity. But once a month they present that reports or the reports are presented with their detailed information to our improvement cycle meetings that are chaired by a head of service. So they will go through before that meeting where each team, each part of the service is against those indicators, and will monitor whether progress is being made, whether we're performing well against those indicators, and if there are any areas where there's an issue of concern, what action are we going to take and we expect to take to address it. So that's chaired by a head of service on a monthly basis. Doesn't mean that that head of service has not got oversight of that performance during the month, but this is a structured meeting where they'll have those discussions. They'll record the actions coming from that meeting, and the heads of service then pull together a report that goes into our senior management team on a monthly basis. So on that monthly basis, the senior management team, I attend that meeting, will sit and receive reports on the performance indicators. Our BI colleagues will check those data and give us all that information. So it's not an individual pulling it from, it's not an individual in the service pulling it from the records. It's pulled by our BI colleagues, and we will go through that report. We'll see and measure the success, monitoring against all the progress, all the areas, what action is being taken, if any action needs to be taken, if there was an issue. We are mindful that because we get it at such regularity that some months there might be a blip on something, but it does. So we also get the year-to-date performance. So we could tell if something had dropped for 1 month, but actually we knew for the year-to-date how we were doing. So that is presented to that meeting. On top of that, we also provide, we're also provided with regional data telling us how we are doing in Leicestershire against the East Midlands. So we have it against our outstanding authorities. We have it against our colleagues in the East Midlands, and it's also against the English average. So we would know against all those areas how we are performing. We do sometimes have red. There are 2 red issues that are on the performance report for committee today, which are around re-referrals and repeat child protection plans. And we will have within our performance reporting meetings the actions that we're taking and the oversight and what we expect to see. So we have, we have a quality assurance framework. So if we are concerned about a particular issue or a particular area of the service with an issue, we do some deep dives. So we do audits, because we don't only look at figures, we look at the quality behind those figures. So it's very nice for me to know that every child in our care has got a care plan. That's great. What I want to know is whether those care plans are of a sufficient quality that are driving the planning for those children. So the QA framework alongside with the performance is how we do that.
Just to come back very quickly. So we are talking national key indicators, which you have to, so when you are talking, which is a really salient and important point, you're not just looking at the care plan, you're looking at the quality of the care plan. So do you set yourself local key indicators, you know, internal ones to achieve as well, to achieve exactly that?
So one of the key indicators that we're looking at internally, as well as the national things, if we take care planning as an example, is that we report on permanence planning for children as part of that, but we're doing work on how we build those networks for our children in care with their families and extended family members. And we're also looking at making sure that where children are able to return home, that we're doing and got everything in place. So we will look at the detail of indicators. So some of those are local indicators, but based on national evidence-based practice.
Thank you. Dr. North.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for those answers. They were really constructive and they ruled out about 5 questions my side. So thank you. Thank you, colleagues. There is some considerations, though, to the data that I really want to be clear upon, because we've got the progress update for the plan, which is great since we've approved it. The national indicators are missing a lot, though, from that. So it's very much how are we actually performing as a whole entity, comparing with other local councils and throughout, you know, England. I think that's missing sometimes. So when I went through that, I couldn't find comparative data where I could look and say, okay, whether it's gone up or down, is that then national average? So probably just as a feedback point, something to improve upon, please. Also, on a positive measure as well, I mean, there's a lot of effort that's gone into that plan. I've seen the outcomes, but where would you say, like, what's your top 3 at the minute so far with how far we are into the plan, which is early stages, but which would you say already are showing considerable improvement for children since the plan's been approved, which I know is a short time, but those are the sort of things I would like a bit more eye-catching as well, saying, look, these are our top 3, you know, and the same for the negative side, unfortunately, too, but these are our lowest performing indicators, and this is the for why. And I totally appreciate the activity and the measures and the KPIs, but I'm still lost for a couple of questions for what's the measurable difference for the child. I think even Miss Pendlebury was, you know, commenting on that. So how do you measure that within a child? You know, and it's their own satisfaction rate, because they are the ultimate customer if you look at it with a business mind frame. So I think I just want to see a few more measurable differences to children. How are you going to get that feedback, you know, and it's impacting and improving them? Thank you.
Of course, we can add some of those. I think the issue for the child is, and we can include it, of course, in the report, is we do a lot of work to gain child voice, obviously depending on age and stage of development. So that the child voice and the family voice are obviously key indicators for us on progress. But some of the things that are outlined as an example under point 11 in the report. So and I can probably provide more detail in a sort of a future report. So when we record a reduction in the escalation of child in need plans, the positive impact for the family is that we've been able to support that family at a level that it's not escalated for there to be child protection concerns or that child to come into care. So that would be a positive outcome for those children, and where we've seen the improvement in children being able to return home. So we can word it in a different way next time to provide that level of evidence, but it is there. Yeah.
Can I come back, Chair? Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, and thanks for clarifying that. And I do agree, all those measures are really helpful and important. But the truth about data is it's only really effective when it's complete. So unless you ask every single service member and we get complete feedback from every single service member, we don't have the appropriate success or negative rates that correspond with the actual outcome for the child. It may be that one person's had an extraordinary service and they're the ones that are asked, and the one who didn't have one was never asked and never got that feedback. So I appreciate that. I just say try and keep that into consideration, because I think when there's complaints, and of course there's safeguarding measures as well, I think those complaints really need to come to a forefront, and we need to know we're addressing them as a committee. I don't see enough of those in that information really, and I think that's a bit I think it's vitally important, to be honest. I think that's part of our roles. And as councillors on this board, I think it's, you know, we have to make sure that we scrutinise the full process. So I really appreciate that. Child's voice is really important. I've actually worked with some of your colleagues in that department before, working with a charity, and they were absolutely exceptional people. And I think those services that exist are really valuable, but I don't think it's enough to get a fuller picture. Just as feedback. Thank you.
Do you want to come back, or good? Any further questions? Thank you so much. I know this is a request from members previously to bring this back, and I think by the sounds of it, there's an appetite to maybe have this brought back again in the future just to discuss the progress, because this obviously is covering a significant period of time, and I know there's a shift from what has happened previously as well. So that I think it'd be great to bring this back in the future as well. So thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next agenda item now, which is item number 9, with Celestia Music Service overview report. So Sharon, I think you're going to be introducing this again, and Michelle, thank you very much for joining, and I think you're going to help us as well bring this to life. So thank you very much. Over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and yeah, introduce my colleague Michelle White, who's the head of service over in the education inclusion side of the service, and should have noted before that Tim Brown sends his apologies today. So Michelle will hopefully help if there are some service details that are needed. So the committee have received a report have received previous reports on the music service that is described as the Leicestershire Music Service. It does service Leicestershire and Leicester. Obviously, for the purpose of this committee, we're including detail that would be relevant to the whole of the area in how the music service was developed and founded. But we've focused very much on the activity being what happens for Leicestershire and Leicestershire children. So paragraph 2 to 4 gives you the background of the Leicestershire Music Service being founded in 1948. It takes you through the work that's happened around that hub and spoke model of how the service is delivered. Paragraph 5 explains for the committee how the funding for that service is sourced. So there's a capital grant and a revenue grant that helps provide and fund the service. I think probably for the committee, well, hopefully for the committee to note on paragraph 11 onwards, we've listed, and the report writer has listed within the report, some of the things that the music service delivers which supports our children, where inclusion and special educational needs are an issue, where well-being and personal development. So the focus of the service is in helping all children have access to music lessons, to be able to learn to play an instrument. As we know, that can be very expensive, and for some families and for some children, if the music service wasn't there, that wouldn't be something that they would be able to do. So the report outlines some of the successes of the service and some of the National Youth Jazz Orchestra and other things that have been run by the service. So I'm hoping that that takes you then through to paragraph 21, which talks about what's working well. So a high percentage, 93% of schools in the area have been supported by the service. It talks about pupils, the number of pupils taking part in music activities who come from a more disadvantaged background, and explains some of the key successes of things that have been delivered by the service. The challenges are outlined in paragraph 22. There have been financial issues around the ongoing pay awards comes out of whether the extra amount with the grants and things that come in is a challenge each year. So they are things that need to be looked at, but those key challenges are outlined under paragraph 22. And then paragraph 23 takes you through the future plans and development for the service, about what we are hoping to, and the service is hoping to deliver over the next 12 months. Michelle's here if there was any other detail to share, or we're happy to take questions.
Thank you very much indeed. This, I think, again, was one of those ones that came last year and we asked to come back make it a more regular item because it is so impressive, firstly, but also inspirational. I broke protocol. Mr. Pugsley, you can interrupt me if you like. Apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, echoing what you said and what the committee said last time, it's a report I always love to bring here because it's just so brilliant. I think a lot of places will always consider music to be one of those nice extras that we don't need to have. And it's often one of the first things to go when you're looking at budgets and they start to become tight. And I think it's one of the things that is brilliant here in Leicestershire that neither the department nor the committee see Leicestershire music like that. I think that's brilliant. I think one of the interesting things from the report was 18,000 children. That's just the number of children in schools that the service delivered and was able to deliver services to. And I could speak for hours of the work that they're doing on schools, for example, with special educational needs, the work that's going on there. But I think the biggest thing that I do is say thank you to the department, because they're doing all of this in a funding horizon which isn't brilliant. I think I've looked at it. Obviously, the service has been around since 1945, but between 2015 and today, there's been a rise of, I think, 5% in 11 years. So, and obviously this year that stayed where it is. So over that period, it's a real terms cut of 500,000. So I think for them to be able to deliver all of this, something that's so brilliant, and we all know the effects that this will have on children, I think it shows it's a really, really interesting and brilliant piece of work from the department that I know on behalf of the committee we're all grateful for. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And yeah, just to echo some of that as well, but also to say, I think for me, one of the challenges that is pointed out here and really concerns me most is about the, local government reorganisation, because it's going to significantly affect, I guess, how we conduct it. And I know to say about Rutland currently belongs to another service anyway. And I think a lot of that good work is in danger of being undermined by that. And I think we're going to have to fight really hard. And it's good to hear you say that, Mr. Pugsley, around recognising the value, because it affects children from young to old. And I love the fact there's a career progression in here now. And, having went to a music school myself, it's so important. It starts here. It starts close to home. So thank you for bringing this. It's really, like I said, inspirational. Mrs. Page.
Yes, I don't want to add anything onto. Apologies for my coughing fit. Probably get another one. I don't want to add anything to this conversation. I think it's absolutely fantastic and brilliant. In my previous life as chairman, I supported this and I went around to De Montfort Hall. And I just feel that we are not giving this enough media coverage and publication. And I just think that under future plans, that should be one of the features, to take it out more, to give it more coverage, because I think in the last 10 years, it has fallen onto a back burner. And I really do think we ought to promote this a lot more, because it brings a tremendous value. Thank you. And thank you to all the staff as well who are doing this.
What's North?
Thank you, Chair. Okay, just having a look at some of the stats around the music provision. I should firstly say actually completely agree with my colleague, Councillor Page over there. I think music is really underestimated in schools, and the impact it has on children well-being and welfare is astronomical. And again, it's one of those things that are really hard to measure, and you can only really measure it once it's fully implemented and actually carried out, because the absence of something cannot be measured. And that's why this is so important. And I think it does need to be advertised even further. I think it needs more people shouting about it, the improvement this can make to students. And am I right? Is it mostly with a SEND focus?
No, not specifically entirely with the SEND focus, but they've flexed and moved their provision over the last couple of years to focus on that because of the growing demand. So that's been a relatively new area of focus. But yeah, they make it accessible for all, but particularly look at vulnerable groups like SEND and wellbeing.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. I think there's already multiple research papers out saying how this actually improves childhood learning and abilities, and it actually stimulates well-being in a classroom. It can decrease anxiety, and actually giving them the physical side of music too, with instruments and the rest, is really empowering for children. I suppose I was a little bit confused because I wanted to ask because of the inclusion and SEND area, because it said LM delivers bespoke products in SEND schools and offers support to SEND settings, aligning with the council's focus on special needs. But it's not just restricted to that, then it is statewide, is it? And do we fully fund that for schools, or do they contribute towards it, or do they apply for the programme? How is it obtained?
So we fully fund the provision, but then you'll see there's a traded element of the service around the practicalities of it, of buying in some of those instruments, some of the equipment you need for that helps support the overall budget.
Okay, great. Thanks. And then because those things are what cost as well sometimes. So, you know, I'm aware of some of my own children who partake in music activity at school. It's an extra provision, I pay extra for it, and they loan the equipment. They actually have the equipment, they bring it in, and at the end of every 3 months they put a little concert on together. I don't know if you're aware of Rock Jam, but it might be very similar to what Leicester Musical is trying to establish. So I think it'd be really good comparative data to have a look at some of those competitors as well and weigh that up against and say, hey, maybe we could provide a bit more of this, because I know my children's faces light up like a beam when they see themselves on, and they do it with a really simple app. It's just basic photographs put together, and then the music that they've made together, you know, put there. It's just, I think it's fabulous, but they actually have a way of recording achievements and developments from that and the impact it has. So that would be a really good way to capture an output from this and measure it and say, look at the progress these children have made, just as an idea for better feedback. And then I did have another question as well, because sorry, forgive me, I'm just looking. So is there current measures with SEND children and have I put it here? Sorry. The SEND children and Leicester Music generally, are they doing any stats at the moment with the new provision for SEND?
We haven't, no, and that's an important point to take back, but you'll see that they're looking at the first ever impact report, and I'm not sure on the specific details there for that yet, whether they'll be SEND within there. I think certainly because of the focus on this and the wellbeing and SEND, I'd be surprised if it wasn't, but I can certainly get that information and come back to you from the order of the report, yeah.
That would be really helpful. And Michelle as well, if they need to, for safeguarding reasons or whatever, they could branch it under inclusivity and generalise it and say that also includes SEND for metrics, because I think it'd be really important to have that data and then be able to have something to cross-reference it from and then show the success of the service. I think as well, are you noticing any sort of like geographical issues with implementing music out? Are you implementing it fairly? Is it going in certain areas first? Is there
I think there's a general consensus, you can see from the data, that schools are readily accepting this. They want it, they enjoy it. So, you know, I think it's positive all round from the schools, the young people who receive it, and the parents and carers who are seeing young people really benefit from it. So, yeah, positive all round for those experiencing it.
That's really good indicators. Thank you. And would you have any provisions or any way to measure for children in care to access this service and how well it could impact on their own well-being?
I think, again, that's going to be part of that impact reform report that's going to be really essential for us, isn't it, to pick out those key particular vulnerable groups. Yeah, really important for us to look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Like I said, this is for me such a brilliant item, and it really does. And it makes you consider what we do here, because we have to fight for services like this. They are so important. And I look forward to seeing some of those success markers, because I think it really will highlight why it exists and why we should really champion it moving forward. So thank you very much. We're going to move forward now into item 10. Item 10 is the Q1 26-27 performance report. So Sharon's going to bring this to life again with the help of Kay Fletcher, Interim Assistant Director for Targeted Early Help in Children's Social Care. And Michelle, I believe you're staying for this one as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So the quarterly performance report, again, is a regular report that comes to the committee. So I believe everybody will have seen previous reports. It contains some of the performance indicators that we'll probably reference to in the first departmental plan. But these are performance indicators that we agree are submitted in the main to the government or the Department of Education. So they are national indicators that authorities are measured against. So the report, at the beginning of the report, apologies, at paragraph 6 and 7, it talks to you about the number of usage of our Tableau server. So that is really just to give the committee an overview from our colleagues in business intelligence around the access to the system that is being made for workers across the service to monitor performance. And some of the ways we monitor that performance I've described for the committee in the earlier report, so won't repeat that process, but we'll take you through some of the detail on the performance that's here, and concentrating on two of the areas that we are more concerned about with our performance, and give some background and hopefully reassurance about what we're doing about those areas. If we move on to children, helping children in Leicestershire live in a safe, stable environment and have secure attachments. So much of that data that is in paragraph 8 to 15 that focuses on that area of children is showing a relatively stable progress against data, progress against the number of assessments that are completed within a timescale that is set as by the Department of Education. It talks about our indicators around our care leavers, and some of those indicators that are measured against children in care and health. But what I wanted to concentrate on for the committee in this section of the report today are the two indicators that we are focusing on with issues around the performance, and hopefully give some reassurance about what we're doing. So paragraph 9 identifies or outlines for you the information about children becoming subject to a child protection plan for a second or subsequent time in the year. So that performance has declined from our last quarterly report. What I can say is that we're measured on a month by month, because this is up to June and we're now at the end of August. We do see improvements in this area of work, but as reported to the committee, that's an area where there was where an increased percentage is not what we want to see. We are measured against this, as a reminder, we're measured against this, measuring other authorities' performance from previous years. So we're providing our up-to-date performance against their previous year's performance. And I do have to say that when we've looked at the performance across the region against these two area indicators in paragraph 9 and 10, we are not an outlier. So there is something happening across the country and across the region around the percentages of those numbers. So it's not said as that we're not focused on it, it's just putting into context that what's happening. We audit and our numbers on child protection plans have reduced safely, and it's good, a positive that they've reduced. But of course, when they are a lower number, it doesn't need many families with a higher number of children that particular month to have a repeat plan for that percentage to be higher. So we do have to remember those key things. Audit work's been completed on this area to have insight. So in the main, we're reassured that these decisions for children to become subject to the child protection is the right decision. So we've audited to make sure we've not got children going on to plans where they don't need to. The decision to remove them previously from the plan was a sound decision. Progress had been made against that plan. So we've measured to make sure that we've not got a difficulty in those two areas. For the main, these are children that their previous plan was 2 or more years ago. So these are not children ping-ponging onto plans, off plans and back off plans. There has been a significant period of time. However, we wouldn't want any child to be subject to or need to be subject to a child protection plan. And obviously, if it's on a subsequent occasion, we would be concerned and want to focus on what's causing it. We do know that significantly, the children are children where there are some key areas within the family around domestic abuse, parental mental health and parental substance misuse. So we are looking at our approaches and how we work with those families and how we can reduce that need for those children to be on a plan for a second or subsequent time. The other area that I wanted to focus on in this section are the percentage of re-referrals to children's social care. So that again has increased this quarter. There are a number of things that when we've audited and looked at this area that are significant. We have moved to a new way of recording contacts into the service. So we currently have our first response team, who are our social care team front door, and we have a targeted family help team who take those referrals from the public and from others that are requiring support at that targeted family help level. Some children move through that front door between those two services. We have moved as part of our Family First partnership work to have a one contact that comes in so that we are measuring that in a better way. What we've uncovered is that the system has been double counting some children that are coming into the service. So we've been undertaking a piece of work to make sure those double countings are removed from the system. So for instance, if the police do send all notifications of domestic abuse through to us. We have an extended domestic abuse team that sits as part of our targeted family help service. They reach out and monitor those requests that come in those circumstances coming in. If when they look at that, there is a significance that they believe it's significant and social care need to look at it and it moves to social care, it shouldn't be counted as a second contact. It's coming to the service and we need to get the right service to them. So there is work ongoing to make sure that we reduce where they've been double counted, and we are confident that when this is reported in the future and that work's completed, that figure will be nearer to what it needs to be. But I'm happy to take any questions later about that. If we move on to paragraph 16 onwards, this talks about the number of children. So this moves into the education performance. So it talks about the number of children who have an education, health and care plan, and the increases that there've been in those numbers of children. It talks about paragraph 18, the number of children in mainstream schools without an education, health and care plan, but are in receipt of additional special educational needs support. So shows those numbers that are there. Paragraph 20 takes you through our youth justice data and the first time entrance into the criminal justice system. So that was 17, so that's an increase of 4 on the previous area. So again, our numbers are not high, but we do keep a close eye on the rationale and reasoning for those children coming into the criminal justice system and what we're doing to support them, and obviously the preventative work that can be and could be done. Paragraph 21 to 22 takes you through the children subject eligible for 2-year-olds who are eligible to funded early education, and the data and percentage around that. It talks in paragraph 22 that there have been some issues in reporting the free education adjustments, so there might be a slight inaccuracy in the above figure because of that reporting. That is something that we're working with the Department of Education about. And then paragraph 23 onwards takes you through the data around children having access to their first preference for schools, and those percentages are there for you. Paragraph 26 is an area that I know the committee has been focused on previously, which is around children electively educated. So there has been an increase of 56 students in the period being reported. And what we've done on paragraph 28 is added to the report the reasons given for those youngsters being home educated, because we felt that would be helpful for the committee to know. Paragraph 30 takes you through the number of permanent exclusions that they've been from school in the period and where Leicestershire sits around that benchmarking, and then and statistical neighbours, sorry. And then the number of children in 33 where they've received at least one fixed term suspension from a school as a percentage. So I hope that gives you an overview of the data. Obviously, Michelle's here if there is more specific information around the education side that you would want, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pugsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll start with the 2 areas that have been touched on in the report that we are in the bottom quartile of. So that's obviously repeat child protection plans and then re-referrals. So obviously we've gone through in the report and explained the this is an issue that is being dealt with nationally. But obviously the most important part is, as a department and myself as lead member, it's an issue that we are aware of, one that I am confident the department's working on. And from my point of view, is something that I will be keeping an eye on, obviously, before it comes back to the committee. But saying that, there are some really good areas of progress in the report as well. So some of them that are really interesting is assessment timeliness is up to 88.5%, which is really good. Another one that I really like to see was suspensions from schools are falling, I believe, for the first time since COVID, which again is really good to see. And then one of the big areas which the department has worked on, and they've worked on brilliantly, is education, health and care plans. So again, despite rising demand, we've taken the average wait time for an EHCP down from 58 weeks just over a year ago down to 18 weeks, which not only is a reduction of 40 weeks, but it brings it within the statutory time frame. So I think taking all of that into context for the department, there's some really good work that's going on, but there are obviously just a couple of areas that we are watching on, which I'm confident we can get moving in the right direction.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question on the dashboard you've got here at the bottom of this. There's actually 10 are getting worse out of the progress. I believe it is 10 getting worse, 2 no change, and 2 an improvement. Would it be possible that you could put probably the last one and the one before's in there as well? Because we don't know if that's a trend or if it's a blip. Do you know what I mean? It's saying they're getting worse, but that could just be a small blip this time, where for the last 5 before, it could have been getting better and better. But it's hard to compare it against something. It just looks bad when you look there. 10 out of, I think it's 15, show that they're getting worse, when it might just be a slight adjustment. But on the whole, the trend is going up. Would that be possible, please? Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Pendlebury.
A couple of questions. Paragraph 36, you talk about NEAT. Are there any stats for children who've come from care into and are not in education, employment or training? And I have another question. One you didn't touch on, but just a little bit of a question. You talk about dental care, which I think is really worrying because of the impact of dental care on heart, diabetes and various other physical health conditions. Is the dentist lack of children receiving dental care due to lack of dentists, due to lack of children agreeing? What's causing the children not to go to the dentist? I think that's about it at the minute. Thanks.
Thank you. Does paragraph 13 answer your question about need for children in care? Because that gives the percentage of care leavers. Is that the info, or is it something more detailed that you were wanting?
No, you're absolutely right. Completely missed that.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure if there was something else that you needed. In relation to dentists, we have worked really hard to get our children registered with dentists. So I'm not saying there aren't sometimes complexities around that, because we know that there are a shortage of dentists, but in the main, we get our children registered with them. Some of the data and the data that we of performance that we're looking at behind the data is the older young people that struggle for us to encourage them to go to the dentist. We are working with our colleagues in public health around that for children in care, and how we make sure that children that may not have been encouraged from an early age to go to the dentist are persuaded. So that is a key area of work for us, but it's more around older children's choice and our focus on working with those children to encourage them, rather than them not having access to a dentist.
Thank you.
Dr. North.
Thank you, Chair. Just touching on the dentist stats that we've got and the improvements, and I think dental hygiene is really important, especially again for other illnesses that it could link to. and it helps an individual take care of their own well-being, and you know, hygiene is a massive factor really for lots of issues around that as well. But I know even in my local area, I have constituents that can't get their children into the local dentist and are travelling the other side of Leicestershire to do that. Surely that's posing a problem for everybody, right?
It may pose a problem, but it's one of the things that we focus on with our carers about the expectations that they will support taking children to appointments. So I'm not saying none of those things are an issue, and I'm not saying that there may be an individual case where that is more of a issue for us. But our carers, we work with our carers about those expectations and wanting our children to, for all the reasons that you've both said, take up health and hygiene appointments.
Do they get any support for that being in care? Would it be that the local dentist would have to accept them, or is there any provisions that are put in place to make sure they do get?
They don't, it's not like a school situation where they are a priority group for a dentist to take them, because as we know, a lot of dentists have a private part of their practice as well as the NHS national health part of it. But I have to say, in the main, people will work with us, and they will work often the foster carers where the child will be patients of that dentist, so the dentist will be used to children coming to live with them as foster carers, so they will work hard with it. But our colleagues in public health are supporting in any way they can, because we know this is a key area for us.
Thanks for explaining that. Can I take you back to the point, I think, was it 9 and 10 that you referred to earlier? Okay, so the percentage of a child protection plan has increased, and it seems like quite a lot, actually. And I appreciate you've said there's some national stats that have gone up too. But again, how do we compare against those, and what's the reason for why, if it's a national issue? Why is everyone going up in CPP referrals? What are we missing, you know, the first time round? What's failed on?
Yeah, against the national data, the current national data, not the data from last year that we are measured against within this report, a lot of authorities, both regionally and nationally, have seen an increase in those repeat child protection plans. There are two elements for us, that our numbers of children on the child protection plan have reduced, so therefore it doesn't take many families in a particular month, if the families have got a number of children in, for that percentage to look higher, because the numbers that the percentages against has reduced. The issues are around generally around the complexity of family situations where domestic abuse, parental mental health, and parental substance misuse are factors that are impacting on that child's safety or the parent's ability to look after those children safely.
Thanks for explaining that. Are those the top 3 stats then for why they go in? Those are your measures?
The combination of those 3 things tend to be in place when we're seeing subsequent child protection planning.
Okay, thank you. I suppose if we knew that, and we knew that from the offset for the original child protection plan, I suppose my next question would be, then why didn't we incorporate that as part of the plan before we sign them off, and then subsequently they get re-referred? Because it just highlights, you know, we're not getting this right first time. We're not seeing the broader picture. What are we missing in our CPPs to make them referred second or third? I mean, the first time should be enough, right?
I think it's about understanding the complexities of those three things. And we are confident that when we've looked at the previous plan and when that plan came off, were all the actions that needed to have taken place in place. The issues around the complexity of those things are that quite often families can live for periods of time where some of those safety issues are reduced, and they successfully can safely parent their children. Things can then happen, trauma and things can happen in those adults' life, or they can separate, they can go into a new relationship, and some of those things rear their heads again. We work really hard to, if that happens, to see if there are other things that we can put in place. But our balance always has to be that if those things don't reduce and mitigate that risk, we must do what is right for the child at that time, not look at the figure. So we would have to go back into a conference and look at a subsequent period of planning. What our information tells us from audit is these are not children that are ping-ponging on and off plans. They, in the main, are children that have lived for 2 or more years where actually a plan's not been needed, but then a sequence of events have occurred that have resulted in further concerns.
Thank you, Dr. North.
Sorry,
One more, and I don't want
Yeah,
to give
it was
members the
just-
opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to be clear on this because that doesn't give me that information from this. That doesn't say, you know, after a year or after 2 years after the plan. I think that information would be really important because then it would give us an executive review to be able to balance that out and then ask, okay, maybe was a follow-up needed, just a check-in needed with these families. I mean, we're missing something here, but it's like, what are we missing and where are we missing it? So just food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mrs. Seaton.
Thank you, Chair. My question's really more inquisitive for me, and it goes to the home educated young people. And thank you very much for the graph on there as well. It's sort of school provisions not being needed, the need not being met, cultural lifestyles and so on. That is interesting. But reading the stats before that is very confusing. I'm going from percentages to numbers, and sometimes we've got percentages with no numbers adding to it. So I keep having to do a little brain exercise here and think, well, how many is that? And I have banged on it before about numbers and percentages. So you've got some numbers and percentages here, but other times it's not. But I would like, how long, what is the age that these figures go up to, please, first of all?
Yeah, these figures will go up to school age, so it's statutory school age you're looking at.
For your own notes and being able to judge how young people after that fare in the employment world or go on to further education, because they could go on further. Do you keep stats there at all? Any information on them, or is that something that we could do? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. With the education, health and care plans, yes, because after the statutory school age, as we know, the education, health and care plan is up to 25 if it's appropriate to be. So we definitely track those from elective home education or any vulnerable groups as to their sort of forward planning into adulthood with regards to training. But for the statutory age, that's where our duty then stops. But that's not to say that's not something we could look at with our adult services for any young people who go into our adult services. But if they no longer access the services, then we don't hold that information.
It would be very interesting information to gain, just to see how much of a a hurdle it did and how many years of education they missed, formal education they missed, etc. It's just that I would be very interested in those stats. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's no further questions. Wonderful. Thank you very much for those answers. So we're going to move on now to agenda item 11, which is the Children's Social Care Statutory Complaints and Compliments Annual Report 25-26. Chelsea O'Neill, Corporate Complaints and Information Service Manager, will present this report. Let's give you a moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, so just an overview of the annual complaints and compliments report for the statutory children's complaints. I'll just go through the top key elements of the report and then take any questions at the end. So overall, we received 46 complaints which were considered at stage 1 of the process, 11 complaints for a stage 2, and then we only had 1 complaint that was considered at stage 3. This was an increase from the year previous, where we had 41 at stage 1 and only 4 stage 2 escalations. So quite a big jump in the stage 2 escalations for last year. 183 complaints were processed under the corporate complaints procedure. These were mainly related to child protection matters. Again, this was also an increase from the previous year, where we saw 168. Complaints increased from the previous year in comparison to the numbers. However, when we consider this against the referrals that were received into the service, it does indicate that only a small number of service users have actually gone on to make a complaint. The main cause of complaints that we saw was poor level of service or service failure. These mainly again related to child protection, children in need, child in need or children in care, and children with disabilities. 11 of the stage 1 complaints escalated to stage 2. This equated to 24% of stage 1s. And again, this is an increase from the previous year, where we only saw 4. This increase may indicate that work may need to be completed on the quality of stage 1 responses to ensure that we're replying to all elements of the complaints and that the investigation is being completed fairly. We only saw 1 complaint which was escalated to stage 3, indicating the 10 remaining stage 2 independent investigations reached a satisfactory outcome. I think this adds kind of weight and highlights the importance of the stage 2 independent investigation in reaching a fair outcome on those more complicated complaints that have escalated. We did see a decrease in response times at stage 1. 46% of complaints were responded to within statutory timescales. This is in comparison to 56% the year prior. We are aware that timeliness with responses has become a little bit more challenging. We're seeing a bit more of complex cases being received, and I'm sure it's the same across other services, and it's a national picture with the use of AI is now also contributing towards response times. We're seeing a lot more AI generated complaints, which are just taking a little bit longer to unpick and respond to. Response times for stage 2 independent investigations also decreased, with only 7 out of the 11 cases that were received being responded to within the statutory timescales. It is important to just caveat that stage 2 investigations can take considerably longer due to the reliance on the availability for complainants and staff members for interviews as part of the independent investigation. So they're not always, the delays aren't always in our control. We did receive 63 Ombudsman inquiries that related to education and children's services. 35 of these were related to special educational needs. 17 of these cases did go on to be upheld, meaning fault was identified by the Ombudsman. Again, the majority of these were SEN related, and the details are listed in the appendix. We didn't receive any Ombudsman complaints that related to any children's statutory complaints. Of all the upheld complaints where fault was identified, the complaints team do complete a review for any identified learnings. So action was taken as a result of majority of the complaints that were upheld. These included reminding the team of the need to record decisions, focus on record keeping, requirement to cross-check information provided from partner agencies, and a commitment to develop training on trauma-informed approach. The complaints manager has recently started work with the service to review how we can better improve the complaints process and the performance. It's been agreed that the complaints manager myself will be have more of a presence at senior management meetings to create more of a feedback loop between the complaints team and the service, just again to make sure that that improvement work is ongoing. Just on balance from the complaints, we did receive a small increase in the compliments that were received throughout the year. However, it does remain fairly low at 20 compliments overall. The complaints team did deliver training throughout the year on how to record compliments and just try and raise awareness of that the compliments do need to come into the complaints team for recording. Hopefully, we should kind of start seeing a few more come through, and this will be reflected in next year's annual report. The complaint team have also included compliments training as part of the new starter training programme. So anyone joining will be aware of the process from the offset, and hopefully that will again have an impact into the amount of compliments that are recorded throughout this current year. That is the key elements of the report, but happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pugsley.
Thank you very much. So I'll start with the positives. So there are some good positives in here. For example, the number of compliments more than tripled compared to last year, albeit it's a small number, but it shows that it is going in the right direction. The number of stage 3 complaints was down, which was good to see. And also, it has been mentioned there is a lot of work ongoing to fix some of the issues. But then obviously moving on to some of the issues, the areas that I suppose you could say I'm less comfortable with. The most notable one is that only 46% of complaints at stage 1 were completed within the 20 working day timeframe, which is a shame, and it is down from last year as well. And I understand, obviously, it has been mentioned there are increasing complexity to a lot of the complaints. Obviously, the use of artificial intelligence doesn't make it easier. However, statutory guidance is still clear on the fact that it doesn't stop the clock, and it is an area that I know there's a lot of work going into, but it's an area as lead member I will be watching closely to look for improvements. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And just on that, I noticed there was an article actually on the BBC website, I think the other day, around other councils who are having a similar problem with AI. And I just wondered, one of their solutions was to limit the amount of words that could be inputted in a complaint, because it makes it harder. And I wondered if our council had thought about anything like that. And that was, I can't remember what council it was, but it was on the BBC website about another council.
Thank you. In honesty, with the team have only just kind of started using, trying to benefit from, I suppose, co-pilots who use that in our advantage within the complaint space. So no conversations or along those lines have taken place, but we are aware that as we've seen an increase across all services, not just children's, that we need to kind of be more proactive in our approach and kind of get on top of the management and where we can limit things. So no, that's good to know, because I wasn't aware of that.
Thank you. Any other member questions? Yes, Mrs. Page.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to echo your sentiment. I think that is something as an authority we need to look at, because I was recently on a committee of this body and we had 580 pages because the complaint was AI generated. The cost to us was a solicitor for 2 days. And in the end, it was repeat after repeat. So I think it's something that seriously needs to looked at. My other issue, and I always say that, whilst yes, in a perfect world, there shouldn't be any complaints, but if you're looking at the complaints on the whole wider scale of the services we deliver, it's minimal. And it just sounds very aggressive to say 46%, but you know, it depends whether it's 46% of 10,000 or whatever. So, but we then, you know, don't realize the positives. as Councillor Pugsley said, we have got an increase of compliments, and people are very, very reluctant to compliment while they're very, very happy to complain. So I think that needs to be noted. I always raise this when this comes and it gets produced. So I think overall the service has delivered really, really well when you're looking at the small amount of complaints, in particular the ones that have gone to stage 3, because that is the important stage. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you. Thank you for the report.
Thank you. Sorry, Dr. North, apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Hello. I think the data is really important and informative, and I think it shows some fabulous work by the department as well, which is really important. And of course, the percentages do seem very high because sometimes you're dealing with a low number of complaints. So it seems like a lot, but the comparative data here, it is informative and it is helpful. I do struggle with a bit of it because, you know, we know the department's on improvement. Councillor Pugsley has shared some massive improvements across the service, which I think is really important for the whole department. However, the complaints are vitally important too, because I think what I don't see enough of is how the complaints or the compliments are then being fed back to the service and then shaping that service, you know, throughout. So maybe it's opportunities for improvement. Maybe there is a fundamental error sometimes that comes across, something that we miss. And I don't see any data or any sort of collaboration to say, actually, we've took this and we've improved this service. This is now more efficient in this way, such as probably the waiting time reduction and other things. I don't see that comparative data. Is there a way that that could be improved so we can see the actual service improvement from this service?
Yeah, thank you. So I suppose in terms of the learning, everything is kind of done on a case by case basis. So we don't have, we could obtain it, but it's something that isn't readily available, hasn't been readily available previously. Moving forward with the introduction of the complaints handling code, obviously, as you might be aware, there's a real focus on learning from complaints. So for us for this year, that will be our focus as we implement sections of the code and put that focus on recording the learnings, following through the outcomes and tracking obviously the accountability of any actions that come from the learnings from complaints. So hopefully in next year, well, this year's annual report, that data will be form part of the report. And in the meantime, I can obviously try and obtain anything in terms of the learnings on the individual cases, if that's something that you'd like sight of.
Thank you for that. That would be really helpful, and I think it'd be really informative for the whole committee to be able to review that information. I did want to see as well, I couldn't really see the data of it, like you're saying. I think you can do that going forwards, and it's something that you could do as a reflective period as well. But I really feel it would be imperative to have some further data collected in that manner so we could actually see it. Just even starting off like, this is the data we've collected so far, this is the information, this is what we can then do with that data in a reflective period and looking back. I just don't see any strategy for that or anything that we're going to do with this or how it's going to improve service. So if I like what you've explained and it makes sense, but I just feel, are we missing that then? How can we put something in soon as to help support those claims, because you've got the positives and you've got the negatives, and like rightly everyone was saying as well, the praises might be really important, might be, hey, this was absolutely excellent, but there was this, and taking that little nugget out so we know that we're listening to them people and that we're improving the service. Just maybe as some insight.
Do you want to come back? Or no, you're good. Thank you very much. Any further questions? Perfect. Thank you so much. That was really informative. And again, like I echo that about the compliments. It'd be great to somehow capture more of those. I'm sure they'll have lots that come through the door that do get lost. So yeah. We're going to move on to item number 12, which is the draft Leicestershire and Rutland Safeguarding Children Partnership Yearly Report. Thank you very much. Yeah, we've got Gary Watts, Safeguarding Partnerships Manager, and Sharon will also be presenting this report. Please start when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll give an overview of the report, and Gary, as the board officer, is here if there's any more detailed service questions that members have. So members will be aware that we have duties and responsibilities in legislation around our safeguarding responsibilities and our responsibilities as a safeguarding partner. And as a partnership, we need to produce a yearly report on the progress of the work that has been done across the partnership for children within Leicestershire and Rutland. I say Leicestershire and Rutland, although I appreciate the committee today is focused on children in Leicestershire, but our safeguarding partnership is across those two local authorities. So you'll have had hopefully a chance to read the full report that you have been provided with, but from an overview point of view, the report provides under section paragraph 2 to 6 the statutory requirements and duties upon a local authority and safeguarding partnership. It goes on to talk about our multi-agency safeguarding arrangements that have been presented to this committee previously and were presented as the ongoing arrangement for safeguarding in March 2019. So the committee saw that information before the arrangements were published in June 2019. Thereafter, there have been updates to working together. So working together to safeguard children is a key document that underpins the foundation of safeguarding work across the partnership for children and young people, and in line with Working Together 2026, paragraph 9 outlines the updates that were made to our arrangements when that more recent document was updated. So the yearly report outlines some of the key activity that's taken place. So there has been substantial work undertaken around children where sexual abuse is the risk factor. That linked to work with colleagues in the NSPCC, but also work that we completed across the partnership prior to our JTI inspection in December of last year, and the outcome of that inspection was very positive. So we were very pleased with the work that had been undertaken for that group of children. We've supported changing with health around how the reporting systems, the case recorder, the IT reporting systems between children's social care and health. Work has been done with the Adolescence and Safety Board and the Child Exploitation, Criminal Exploitation and Serious Youth Violence groups. So there is a connectivity across all these key areas of work with that oversight and governance that's provided by our Safeguarding Board. We have focused on some key reviews that have been published by the Department of Education. So under paragraph 12, the fourth point down there tells you that there was a briefing around race and racism and safeguarding children. So that's been considered by partners and looked at that multi-agency training that we've commissioned and the learning that's been embedded in practice coming from that review. We have been awaiting the publication of the practice review around child neglect, and that was reviewed in this period because I guess apologies, I should have said at the beginning, obviously this report is reporting on the period up to March 26. The report also outlines for the committee purposes some of the resource implications. So it describes in paragraph 16 onwards the board office the arrangements with our adult safeguarding board partners, and how the costs for the partnership and the partnership board and delivering the work is split between the key safeguarding partners of the local authority, the police and the ICB. It highlights that part of the issue is that those contributions have not changed over a number of years. We are under some pressure to make sure that we don't increase those contributions, but the cost of delivering safeguarding and making sure that we're able to do the reviews that need to be done are met. Have been possible because we do have some reserves for the safeguarding board, but we are mindful and we are discussing as a safeguarding partnership that those reserves won't last forever. So some work is ongoing to focus on that. So I think that gives you an overview, hopefully, of the rationale of why we need to have a safeguarding annual report or yearly report, the successes and activity that's taken place, and some of the resource implications. And as I said earlier, I hope you've had a chance to look at the full report that gives the detail of the work across the very successful work across the partnership for children and young people in Leicestershire. But happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pugsley.
Thank you. There's not really masses for me to add on this item, but I will say that I am really pleased to see that there's a continued focus still on embedding the voice of of children in the work that the partnership's doing. So from my point of view, that's really brilliant to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Did you want to add anything as well, Gary? Sorry, I didn't invite.
I'll just add that the work started last year, and we've managed to employ 2 young scrutineers, which we're really pleased with. And those 2 young scrutineers will be working with our adult scrutineer. And they've already started work. They've joined a couple of subgroups, and they're working on some posters for safeguarding as well. So we're really pleased about the success of that, if you like. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Dr. North, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the report, I mean, it's a really delicate matter, it's a delicate subject, and even the supplementary reading about baby Victoria is quite hard hitting. There's factors that are incorporated into this on emotional levels for all of us, I think, and it's really important for me to get the grasp of what the partnership has done and how that's changed things for the service, and what evidence tells us whether those interventions actually made children safer. It probably alludes back to, you know, the re-referrals and things like that as well. Probably it's all linked in some way, but that was my first question, please.
Yeah, I'll start, and obviously if others want to contribute. The safeguarding partnership has a structure within it that holds all of us to account for our performance and our activity in safeguarding children and young people. So sitting above the board are the safeguarding partnerships that are at director type level across the key partners, reporting up to chief executive level. So there is senior oversight at all levels of the activity that takes place to ensure that we provide and fulfil our duties and responsibilities under safeguarding. We come together as a partnership, as a wider partnership each year to develop, to share evidence and look at what our priorities for our safeguarding plan needs to be. So there is an overarching plan that has a focus on key priorities that come from evidence base of what's coming to us nationally on learning for this area of work and children and young people in this area. We also include what we've learned from reviews, both in Leicestershire and Rutland, and we share that with our colleagues in the city. So across LLR, we share that learning and we focus on what needs to be in our plan. That plan, we report against that plan and the priorities. So I'm trying to describe for you a really complex structure that is clearly ensuring that we all fulfill our responsibilities and duty for safeguarding, but that we are all held to account. And one of the subgroups that sits as an example is there is a subgroup that sits that looks at performance. So that subgroup will look at the performance across all the agencies on key areas of work of safeguarding and will identify if any partner is not meeting performance or what that agency is doing to address that performance. Hopefully, if issues are identified, it can be resolved at that meeting, but there is an escalation process and there is a structure in place that if there were concerns, they could be escalated. So people don't sit on things around this key area of work. The structure is in there to enable people to work together and provide the best possible service. But if there are issues, there are abilities within that structure to escalate those concerns to right up to chief executive and equivalent level to make sure that that oversight is robust and we are all held to account. Gary's already mentioned to you that we have an independent scrutineer. So we have one for children and one for adults. So they meet with us as safeguarding partners. They also come to the big boards that are held of all partner agencies. So they are providing that independent voice that are scrutinising our work. And the work of the scrutineers that we're really proud and excited to have the young scrutineers will obviously be described next year because they're now in post and came into post after the period that we're reporting on today. So I'm trying hopefully to describe for you a really complex but simple structure that's complex in that it's there and has got the right levels of people scrutinising what needs to happen. The simplicity of it is that people understand what that structure is and understand how they escalate. And we share every year, we share learning from case reviews or reviews, rapid reviews that we've done in the authority. We share them from the learning from the city and they share our learning with their staff. And we also share national learning. So we get from the national panel feedback on the national learning from reviews. And I do have to say that when we have had a concern and we have submitted a rapid review, the national panel have provided really positive feedback on the safeguarding activity that happens in our local area. So I guess, are lots of checks and challenges in the system. I hope that answers your question.
It did, and it answered a couple of others, so thank you for that. I think the scrutineers, is that what you call them? I think that's a massive asset to your staffing quota. I think it's really important. So I'm understanding then that you've got 2 independent people that are completely impartial, that will review cases and help with that feedback and feedback to the partnership as a whole or directly to you.
The adult scrutineers here, so they receive all the reports from the subcommittees around performance, the case review meetings, the Section 11 audit that we have to do. So everything that happens, they provide that overview and they attend our big board meetings to provide that check and challenge. They also provide information. So if there is a concern about a case that we complete a rapid review on, they provide a check and challenge to our work with that on that case. Those cases, fortunately, are very few because they are of concern are reported to the national panel, who also provide oversight and overview of any of that work.
Thank you for that. I was interested in what are the main areas that have identified risk and what measures or assurance you can give the committee that those risks are reducing. Have you got that information to hand?
We've got information and examples. So I talked earlier in the report around the work we've done on child sexual abuse, and we had done some work, or did some work with the NSPCC, sorry, who came in and looked at work across LLR. So that was the three authorities with partner agencies about how we work with that group of children, and the services that we developed. We have developed a number of our services from that work. We have a strategy that we developed ourselves from that work. We've done a lot of auditing to look at the quality of our work and the impact of that work with children. And for that area, we were subject to a joint area inspection in December last year, and the inspectors fed back very positively. So that is just one example of work we've taken. We've done other key work around safe sleeping for babies, and that's then led to campaigns that we've led not only with the public but across our workforce to make sure those messages about safe sleeping go out to all new parents. So that there are a number of examples that we could give, but hopefully they demonstrate some of the things that we've been doing.
Thank you, Dr. North. I know you probably got a few more questions, but I'd love to open the floor to other people, and then if there's time, we can come back. Yes, Mrs. Peck.
Thank you, Chairman, and my apologies, I've got to leave in a second. Yes, it's always great to have new members on the committee, because all of these questions which have been asked 100 times before, get reiterated. And I always think it's really, really valuable. However, having heard all of this before, and I know it being a member at a district council, it will come to the district councils, and we're going through this again. And I see it all as a big wheel, and there are all these little spokes that feed into it. So my question is very, very simple. It is, whilst I appreciate all the spokes in place, and we have now all of the scrutinies in place, but how will LGR affect this? How is this going to work with LGR? Because you're taking away some of the spokes that feed back into this big system. So is there a plan? How are we going to take this forward? Just enlighten me. Thank you very much.
It will be a very complex process in relation to the authorities and the work that we're doing now to prepare ourselves for LGR. The fundamental principle is that whatever happens, we have to have safe services in place for children and families up to April 28 and onwards from April 28. So as the authorities end and the new authorities, vesting day for the new authorities, our task and responsibility is to make sure that families don't feel any of that, because for them it should be a continuation of a service and our responsibilities, and that's what we're working hard to achieve. In relation to any change of boundaries, that is and will require the careful working between the authorities as they are and the authorities as they will be, to make sure we've got the right people in place to provide those services.
If I may come back, but there are going to be some spokes of the wheels missing to feed it through. So have we, or are we going to give it some thought how we can get back out there, because that is the most important thing. So if somebody has a safeguarding issue and reports it to, say, the harbour officer, then it goes back. But if that isn't there to complete the whole picture, so it's a little bit of a worry.
Sorry, you're meaning about the districts and not having the duties and responsibilities that the district do. We have to make sure that whoever and wherever within the authority that they're all taken account of. What we can't have and won't have, and from a we're concentrating on the children and families side. I'm sure colleagues in other departments would say the same. Our duty and responsibility is make sure there aren't any loopholes or gaps in that, and that wherever families touch, we make sure that we've got a responsive service there to pick up those concerns.
Much. Are there any further questions? Okay, if you just ask one, that would be amazing. Thank you.
It is just one. I'll relieve you of that, Chair. It was just a question around the escalation. So I know you mentioned that if something fails at one part of the partnership, it goes up to the next line manager and then right up to chief executive. Is that the same across the board for everyone? So if it's a police issue service,
Well, for the police, it would be to the chief constable. Obviously, for the local authority, it's the chief executive, and for health, it's a chief executive. Yeah.
and would that be escalated by the partnership themselves? Then would it be that if, for instance, if you didn't feel what you were getting from the police was sufficient, you would then escalate? So you would take this. Okay, that was all. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you for your contribution, Mrs. Page said. So we're going to move on to the last item if there's no further questions. And that is item number 13, the annual report of the Independent Reviewing Officer 25-26. Sharon, I think you're leading on this along with Kay Fletcher and Holly Martin, Head of Service, Safeguarding, Improvement and Quality Assurance. So when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll give the overview, and Holly and Kay can provide any additional detail if there is any. Hopefully, members have had chance to something I said. Hopefully, members have had chance to read the full report, as well as the overview report. So we present an annual report. There is a responsibility and duty for us to present or produce an annual report on the work of our independent reviewing officers for children in care. So these are experienced social workers who take on a role, purely a role of an independent reviewing officer, who are employed to chair meetings and have contact with children and their carers with a view to overseeing the care planning for those children. They're not doing the care planning, they're overseeing and making sure that they're holding us all to account to make sure that we've got the right things in place for the plan for that child. So it is a really key role in ensuring and holding us to account for our children in care. That paragraph 2 to 5 sets out the rationale and reason for why we need to have independent reviewing officers, and the requirements of the annual report. And the report that you've had chance to see is the report from April 25 to March 26. So paragraph 6 takes you through the requirements under the Adoption and Children Act 2002. It then takes you on to the role and the essential role of the reviewing officer as described in paragraph 8. So it's a quality assurance, effectiveness of the child who's in care, their experience, and holding us to account to ensure that we are fulfilling our corporate parenting duties and responsibilities to each and every child in our care. So the key headlines are linked in paragraph 11. So during 25-26, the number of children in care was increased to 761 children. So that was an increase on the previous year. paragraph 12, just for information, describes to you the actual number of review meetings that took place for children. So just demonstrates that sheer activity and oversight that takes place. And despite the increase in the numbers of children coming into care during that year, our timeliness remained strong. So over 98% of reviews were completed within the statutory timescales. Children's participation in the reviews remains a clear strength. Obviously, the level of that participation depends on the age and development of that child. But we ensure that IROs will see babies with their carers. A baby's contribution to a review is obviously they're seen and people are speaking for them. But for older children who want to be and can be part of the review, the IROs work hard to either have them at their reviews, and on occasions older young people have chaired their own meeting, or if they feel unable to come to that forum, that their voice is very much part of it. So they'll meet with the child beforehand, they'll look at work and direct work that's been done to get the child's voice, so that's done. So key achievements are listed on paragraph 15 to 17. Some of these I've already said about the timeliness and purposefulness of the reviews, that when looked at and audited, there is clear evidence that they are child focused. We did get very positive feedback from our inspection around the role and the function of our IROs. Paragraph 16 outlines the quality assurance alerts. So this was something that we introduced so that if there is a concern about the way that a plan is being developed for a child, the IRO would obviously talk to the workers in the first instance to try and resolve it. But if there are things that are either not within the gift of that worker or it's not resolved, there is a clear structure and assurance alert programme that if necessary would take it right up to director. But pleased to say that it's positive that those alerts are raised. It shows a robustness of the system. It's also really positive that they are resolved at a lower manager level that shows people are responding to those issues and progressing them as they need to. And the service also contributes to some wider activity. So our children developed the Language That Cares toolkit that was rolled out across the department. The IROs take a key lead in ensuring the discussions with children before the reviews that understands that toolkit's being implemented, and the language and how people and situations are described are really focused on that individual child. So that is a key part. So for the forward plan, paragraph 18 onwards, over the 12 months from March 26, we will continue, or the service will continue to sustain that timely, high quality reviews. They'll continue to strengthen even further children's participation and how using my review booklets and other things can ensure that children's voice is not just heard, it's acted upon. And a key area outlined in paragraph 19 is the IRO's work with the Family First Partnership work that we're doing. So I think that's given a clear overview of the report. I'd also say that our Youth Voice Council, so our Children in Care Council, supported the development of the child's version of the report and have fed back as only they can, both critically and positively about what needed to be in that plan. So they've been very much involved in it. So that's the overview. Obviously, we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. Holly, did you want to add anything at this point?
No, nothing specific.
Mr. Pugsley.
Thank you. I'll just make one quick observation. So the number of children in care rose from, I think it was 694 to 761 in a single year. And against that increase, the service held just over 2,200 reviews, with 98.4% of them happening on time. So I just want to point out the brilliant work that the department have been doing in this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that was the one comment I had. It was incredible the amount of assessments that are being undertaken with seemingly quite a slimline team and everything else. So it's incredible that's being done. Are there any questions from members on this? Yes, Miss Pendlebury.
Just a quick one. Page 113, you talk about expenditure for safeguarding children's partnership. You've introduced new training, but the training costs have gone down from 70,341 to 63,108. Are you just getting better at training people? I thought that was part of this report. My mistake. My mistake. I put a note in the wrong place.
Maybe that can be picked up offline now, and if that question still counts, potentially. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Clearly, I was testing myself.
Dr. North, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It just goes to show how much information we have to evidence and get through. And, you know, there's hundreds of pages here. I think some of the parts of the report are commendable, especially the amount of investigations that you've done. So well done. I do think, though, I'm not getting enough feedback from those investigations. And I feel like the independent reviewing officers should be feeding back a few more of the concerns that translate changes into the service or improvements. Is that there, or have I missed it?
Are you referencing the quality assurance alerts? Is that right? Sorry, yeah. We've given an overview of the number. Obviously, we could provide more detail if you want the detail of examples. We'd have to look at how we do that with not identifying individual children, but happy to have a look at that for a future meeting to actually say. So first and foremost, and that is why I was saying it's positive that the issues are resolved at as lower level of manager as possible, because that means that people are responding positively to the concern and they're addressing it. Because if the IRO believed that it wasn't resolved, they would escalate it up to service manager, head of service, AD, and then if necessary to director. The other thing to say is on a regular basis, there is a challenge meeting that's chaired by the AD, that's attended by the managers of the IROs and ADM. They discuss at that meeting, or have the opportunity to discuss, if there have been any challenges for particular children that aren't resolved, or if there are issues that managers need to know to address. Or if there are any particular themes that are emerging, and it gives a chance for those to be addressed. So I can give some assurance that those structures are in place. If you wanted me to come with some individual examples of that was escalated and that's now been resolved, we could look at that. But as I say, I would have to be careful not to give detail that would identify a child.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I would be interested, because I think also it would show where the IRO has made suggestions. Has that been done in expected timescale that they would have thought of as well? And that would help evaluate that. And I think ultimately, can we demonstrate that children themselves are seeing the real difference of the issues identified by the IROs, rather than demonstrating that those meetings took place, or we actually getting proof of the pudding in the actual service from the child?
Yeah, you're more likely to get from a child whether something positive has happened, rather than them thinking that a particular individual has done something. So they will, I'm sure, as committee know, would tend to describe that if something they've been concerned about has been sorted for them, that's positive. They might not say that's been sorted because an IRO identified it.
Just to clarify, yeah, I think it's that you just want to see the service improved and you want to know that the IRO has done that. So there's got to be a way that you can measure that and say that that was successful implementation or not. So it was just an idea of how you get that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. So any further questions? Perfect. Thank you so much. And I think there's been a theme today of really demonstrating the value of our service and what we do brilliantly. So, and I think that's shining through a lot of the good work we're doing and the questions that are being asked. So thank you. We're going to move on now to item 14, which is just noting the date of the next meetings. We have one, the next one, sorry, is the 3rd of November. And then we have the ones on the order paper as well for next year. So if you take note of those. And then there was no other urgent items. So I'd like to wish you all a lovely afternoon. Have a good evening. And I'll see you all very soon. Thank you very much.